What's up, guys? Welcome to another installment of Mr. Big Shot Cooley's Haunted Ghost Stories. I hope you've been liking the series so far. I've been trying my best, and I hope to expect to see more views as the series goes on. I'm really enjoying this. This is really fun, and I'm just bringing something that I absolutely love to do to you guys. So remember, hit the comment, like, and subscribe. I know I sound like a broken record, but I promise you, if you like this kind of stuff, I'm going to deliver. Remember, this is all stuff that we personally want to enjoy ourselves, because if you watch this video and you take it and you share it, you're doing a favor. You're doing so much, and that's amazing. All I want to do is share my passion with somebody who really appreciates this kind of stuff, and if I get a subscriber, maybe two, I'm happy. So, with that being said, enjoy this next installment. I really hope you do. And again, to reiterate, this is one of the things where we obviously want to listen to something that's really genuine and rich with powerful stories and really entertaining stories that will keep you up at night, the cliche, and, just enjoying them as much as you can. So let's do this. And once again, enjoy. The Black Pictures. I have a sleepwalking problem. I do a lot of weird things in my sleep, which is not usually a problem, until one night. I suddenly woke up at about 4 a.m. and in a sleepwalking state, I went on my phone. My phone had Snapchat open, as I used it right before I went to bed, and I took a picture of the darkness of my room. Then I fell back asleep. After about an hour, I woke up and looked at my phone. It still had the picture of the darkness on it. For some odd reason, I put a black and white filter on the photo, but what happened utterly shocked me. I saw what looked like a person standing at the end of my bed. I asked my family and friends what they thought of it. They doubted it and said it was a picture of a chair, but I was sure it was something else. The next night, I wanted to try something else to get more proof, so at around 11 p.m. I went to sleep and lied down in my bed. I started talking into the darkness and it said, "I know someone is there. I want you to know who you are and what you're doing here. If you're here, show me. Stand by the closet and I'll see you. I won't be scared." My bed faces directly towards the closet. I took out my phone, opened Snapchat, and took pictures of the darkness. I hesitated to put the filter on. When I did, I saw a very clear face right next to the camera, and that looked angry. You could easily see eyes, a big nose, and cornrows. Scared, I slowly got up and left the room and bolted upstairs to show my parents, and they didn't believe me still. I accepted that they wouldn't believe me no matter what. The last incident that happened was when my family was on vacation and my brother and his girlfriend were home sitting for us. It was about midnight and my brother's girlfriend was getting back from work. The room they were staying at in the right next to my room. As she walked down the hall, she saw a tall man standing in my room right next to my bed. She shut the door immediately, called my brother, and told him to come home. Still to this day, I sleep in that room, and there isn't a day that I don't think about it. I tried to get the balls to summon it, them, but I can never pull it off. Thanks for reading, and sorry if it was excessive. Tall, dark, and scary. My story takes place in a small town in Nevada called Topona. My story is 100% real. I wouldn't lie to you. I just thought you may like to hear this story. Topona is a small town in the middle of the desert. It was very prevalent with gold back in the old days, but as soon as it was mined out and the gold seekers continued west, the population went down to maybe 1,000. My mother, sister, and I moved there in 2002 after our parents divorced. We moved to an apartment complex, and my mother was the night auditor at the Ramada Inn. My mother was very depressed from the divorce and took to her old ways of partying and abusing. Without adult supervision, my older sister became pretty wild too. My mother and sister began to fight so badly that at times it turned physical, so she went to live with my dad in Reno, Nevada. After Alice left, my mother still worked the graveyard shift until 2 a.m., and even then sometimes she wouldn't come home. She would be out with friends until the next day, so I was left alone a lot. That's when the paranormal instances slowly began to rear its ugly head. I don't believe the apartment was haunted. I believe all the bad things happening and the depression invited something dark into our lives. Darkness likes darkness. Anyway, the first thing that started happening was the intense feeling of being watched. It didn't matter if it was the day or night, you were being watched, and not only from within the room, it also felt like there were things outside watching you through the windows. It became so uncomfortable to me, so my mother and I switched rooms. It didn't help. I still felt like I was being watched, so I started to sleep on the couch, which was right by the front door, so if I wanted to escape quickly, I could. Well, one day I was walking from the couch to the kitchen to fix myself something to eat. To my right was a hallway, and at the end was a bathroom, with my mother's room to the left and mine was on the right. While I was walking to the kitchen, I couldn't help but look down the hallway. When I did, I saw a huge dark figure run from my mother's room into my room. It didn't really run, more like hovered. It did not touch the floor, but it was very, very, very quick. That's why I say it ran. It was also tall enough to touch the ceiling with the top of its head, and it was very dark. I could not see through it at all. Well, me being 9 or 10 was totally freaked out. I began losing sleep. The only time I would sleep is when I went to visit my mom at work. I would literally sleep at her feet behind her desk at work. My mother did start to worry about me, and she said she felt the eyes watching me as well. But she had to work to keep bread on the table. The only relief she could offer was to tell me to come to her. Well, one day I invited a friend over so I wouldn't be so scared. But when she came over, she started feeling creeped out, so we stood on the porch and talked. As we were talking, we could hear someone coming from behind the apartment. There were leaves on the ground. We could hear them getting closer. People used to walk by all the time, so we weren't scared. But as the sound of the steps got closer and closer, we realized no one was there, and we actually saw the leaves being pressed down in the shape of a foot. But there was no body, and the steps were coming right for us, so we screamed our heads off and ran into the house. Then, the last incident that happened to me in that apartment was only one time I was laying down to go to my bed, in my bedroom. I wanted to sleep, but I couldn't. I felt very strongly that someone was watching me. I felt they were looming over me, so I turned my back to it and put the covers over my head. Then I felt pressure on the bed like someone got into the bed with me, and it whispered something in my ear, but I was very quick in a whisper, so I couldn't tell if it said my name was Kayla or Wake Up. It wasn't a woman's voice. A few months later, we moved. Not out of town, but away from those apartments. I hope you liked the story. It was most definitely the scariest thing I've ever been through. The final farewell before the departure. I've experienced a lot of paranormal things, but nothing like what my husband and his family experienced in the following story. Around the time that me and my now husband were just starting to date, one of his oldest nephews, 18, had just landed in the hospital due to his treatments for leukemia. Sadly, none of his treatments were working. They were just making things worse. He lost all his hair and kept throwing up uncontrollably. Soon after, he was put in a machine to help him breathe as he stopped his breathing on his own. My husband lived at his older brother's house at the time. He slept in the same bedroom as his younger nephews. He said the night before the doctors had told his sisters to unplug his nephew from the ventilator to see if he could breathe on his own. Everyone at home was awakened by the radio being turned on to max volume. When they all went out to investigate what caused it to turn on, a soccer ball came rolling from the closet at the end of the hallway. That soccer ball was actually his nephew's. They all looked at each other and thought of him. The next day, they took him out of the ventilator and wasn't able to breathe on his own, and the line immediately went flat. That month, the entire family gathered for Christmas and all talked about him. When my husband talked about the weird incident he had at his brother's house, his older brother joined in and said, "Yeah, it's as if he came home from school one last time, turned on the radio full blast, and took the soccer ball to go out and play with my kids." The rest of my husband's brothers and sisters all looked shocked, and either them or their kids had experienced something similar. They all concluded that it was in fact him saying his last goodbyes. The saddest one I heard that night was that of his younger sister, who said she was about to go to sleep and heard his brother yell out her name like he usually did to close the door after him when he would leave to the park to play soccer with his cousins. She totally freaked out because she knew he was at the hospital, but immediately felt a great sadness fill her up and knew he was saying his last goodbyes to her. It's amazing how he managed to contact his entire family here the night before and say his final goodbyes one way or the other. Honestly, when he passed away, the whole family cried, but it was weird at the moment because they all went up to him, one by one, and said, "See you later." They knew it was him the night before, saying goodbye like any other normal day that he visited them. To this day, none of them speak of him like he is actually gone. I think that last farewell he gave them that night made them be at peace with his passing the next day. It's been 6 years and we still love talking about how he was awesome enough to say his goodbyes to all of them. Shadows, beams, and a final goodbye. Before I begin writing about my experiences, let me warn you that this will be long because it is my first time I'm putting a lot of this out there. I was about 14 when all of this began. A little background. My mom was diagnosed with recurring cancer about 8 to 9 months after my dad left us, so we had to move in with two of my aunts and my maternal grandparents because my mom could not afford to pay rent on her own. When we first moved into the new house, my mom, younger brother, and I shared the master bedroom, which was huge. At the far end of the room, is a little hallway that leads to the master bathroom, and it has a closet on each side. My bed was on one side of the hallway entry, and my mom and little brother's bed was on the other side. The second night we spent there, my brother mentioned that he woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, but froze when he saw a white, glowing figure in between both beds and that slowly rose from a sitting or kneeling position and walked down the small hallway towards the bathroom. My mom and I dismissed this story because he was only 11, so we thought he was either dreaming or imagining things. One night, when I was about 15 or 16, I was lying in bed awake around 1 a.m. when I heard a female crying in between both beds. It sounded closer to my mom's bed, so I assumed it was her at first. My mom was going through chemo and sometimes cried at night when she thought we were sleeping because she was in pain physically or emotionally. Because, in case you're fortunate enough to not have met anyone going through this, chemo is a female dog. Anyway, I stayed up still for a couple of minutes listening to the crying because it didn't sound like my mom, and I was trying to analyze what might be wrong. When I couldn't just pretend like I didn't hear anything anymore, I said, "Mommy?" And she replied, her voice completely clear and obvious that she hadn't been crying. "Yeah, baby." The crazy part is that as soon as I said "Mommy," the crying stopped abruptly. No sobs or sniffles or anything. I asked her if she was okay, and she said that she thought it was me that had been crying, but she knew sometimes people just have to cry, so she didn't want to disturb me. At that point, I sat up and told her it wasn't me. She said it was probably our dog having a bad dream then. I looked around through the dark and spotted my white dog in a corner on the opposite side of the room. I agreed with her because I was spooked and hid under my covers. The next day, I brought it up again, and she told me that she didn't think it was my dog. She didn't just want to scare me. A few minutes before the crying started, she felt something rub against her leg soothingly. She thought it was her grandma crying because her youngest granddaughter was in such pain. A few more years and experiences, which I will still refer to in a later story, and my mom was in the hospital. At first, it started like any other time she was hospitalized, but her condition quickly deteriorated. I spent the nights with her at the hospital, and there were several times when I felt something off in the room. One night, I didn't spend the night at the hospital, but I got a call from my aunt that my mom was calling for me, and she needed me and my brothers to go to the hospital as soon as possible. When I arrived, the nurse was changing the bed sheets, but my mom was too weak to get up, so I had to help kind of hold her in a strong position as they maneuvered around her. She was trying to be her silly self, but it was clear something was wrong. She looked up, stared behind where my aunt was standing, and screamed, "Lucy, be careful with that shadow behind you." We looked and didn't see anything, so we assumed it was medicine making her hallucinate. The next day, my cousins came in and stayed with her while I got something to eat. I didn't know about this until recently, and I never really mentioned the shadow incident to anyone either, but my cousin, Carla, saw the shadow as well. My family is very religious, although I'm not, and my cousin said that she was singing some gospel to my mom when my mom said, "Keep singing." The shadow doesn't like it when we pray or sing. Soon after, my cousin saw a dark shadow in the corner behind my mom's bed. As I got closer to my mom, she saw two white beams of light on either side of my mom's hospital bed, and the shadow backed up and disappeared. The last thing that happened to me was the night my mom passed away. It was about 4 days after my cousins experienced that in the hospital. My mom had been sent home in hospice, and the day she passed, my dog died as well. My dog in the morning, and I was so sad that I slept all day. Around 9 p.m., I had a dream that I was lying in bed, and my mom walked up to me, healthy and happy, and said to me, "I love you, my menina," my girl in Spanish, but it's time for me to let go. She then kissed me, and I woke up. I went to her room and told her I loved her and was just going to get something to eat. I kissed her forehead and went downstairs. I hadn't even sat down to eat my pizza when my aunt ran downstairs and told everyone my mom had stopped breathing. I honestly believe my mom said one final goodbye to me.